Well, folks, based on recent news reports, it would appear that the biblical plagues from the Old Testament are in fact descending upon the Republican-controlled state of Florida. A couple weeks ago, I told you about the fact that we have malaria cases spiking here across the state of Florida. That's not necessarily biblical, but definitely something that is of concern, that we have malaria running through Florida. Well, this week, we also had reports about the number of cases of leprosy that are apparently mildly spiking in the state of Florida. In fact, the state of Florida now makes up half of the new cases of leprosy that the United States has seen this year. There's been 15 cases nationally, 8 of them from the state of Florida. Leprosy, of course, is in fact a biblical ailment. It is an ancient disease, but believe it or not, it's not super uncommon, because leprosy can be spread by armadillos. That is, in fact, one of the number one ways here in the United States that people contract leprosy, because the bacteria that causes it likes to make its home on armadillos. The problem we're actually seeing now in the state of Florida, though, is that we're getting lots of cases popping up that have nothing to do with armadillos. People going to the hospital, finding out they have leprosy, and then, of course, the CDC and the State Department of Health finding out that these individuals had no contact with armadillos. They don't see armadillos. Most of them probably couldn't identify what an armadillo looks like in the wild. So that's the story. That's the problem. It's not just that we have leprosy. We've always had cases. They're actually kind of spreading around the American South, becoming what researchers are scared to call endemic. So leprosy may just be here to stay, but let's count that as a biblical plague, right? Leprosy. Okay. Well, we also have the seas boiling around the state of Florida. Reports this week have also told us that we have sea temperatures in South Florida that have now reached over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The hottest water temperature on record for this state since the invention of record keeping. Corals are dying. The Florida Keys are dying. They are boiling in the hot sun and hot waters. And as we all know, the seas boiling is, of course, something mentioned in Revelations. It is actually a predictor of the end times. Now, if I were a religious man, which I am not, sorry, Mom, if you're watching this, I'm just not, I'd be a little worried, right? The next thing we need is for a swarm of locusts or perhaps frogs to be raining down from the sky. And technically, even though we don't have, invasive amphibians running rampant here in Florida, we do have lots of invasive reptiles, especially in Central and South Florida. We've got the Burmese pythons that have become a massive problem. We do have the iguanas in South Florida that are a massive problem. I know reptiles are not amphibians, but you know what? It's close enough. Maybe we should count that as another biblical plague. The point of all of this, however, the health problems, the climate change problems, because that's what it boils down to, right? We have health issues here in the state of Florida, and the state is doing nothing about it. Not one reason, but the big reason that's happening is actually because we have positions within Florida's, Department of Health that have not been filled. Vital positions, including the ones that oversee endemic and pandemic diseases. So we're not even equipped to address the issue that we have malaria and leprosy spreading in the state. We have a Republican-controlled legislature and governor's house ever since 1998, by the way. So we're rocking 25 years of solid Republican rule, and they've done nothing about the issue of climate change. And that's why we're witnessing these ridiculous, deadly surges in our water temperature. Not just because Florida hasn't addressed climate change, obviously. That's not just our state, it's everywhere. But these are not actually biblical plagues. These are failures of Republican leadership. And that's the point of this. We cannot properly address the issue of spreading diseases. We cannot address the issue of climate change, whether it's here in Florida or on a national or even international scale, because of right-wing politicians. And we're starting to see the consequences of that. What's happening in Florida is going to start happening everywhere else too. Just look at us as the warning. So next time you hear Ron DeSantis say that he wants to make America Florida, look at how horrible things are down here and ask yourself, do you really want that? Do you want the biblical plagues coming to your state? As if not, maybe it's time to stop voting Republican forever.